You open your eyes for the first time and congratulations. You're 13, feral, and someone just decided you'd make a great science project. They don't ask permission. They don't explain. They just strap you down and start installing. 19 organs. Not metaphorically. They crack your ribs open and add a second heart. They're upgrading firmware. One lets you digest poison. One lets you breathe vacuum. One lets you taste memories and dirt. You don't ask why. Asking gets you sedated and replaced by the next orphan in line. Then comes the black carapace. They fuse it to your spine, turning your nervous system into a docking port. From now on, armor isn't something you wear. It's something you become. If it pinches, that's devotion. If it burns, that's progress. They erase your name. Call it purity. They erase your memories. Call it focus. Your personality? Unnecessary variance. You get assigned to a legion. Not chosen. Assigned. The Ultramarines. The blue ones. The noble ones. The ones who laminate their battle plans and then burn them for extra holiness. You meet your squad in a training cage. No introductions. Just chain weapons and unprocessed trauma. One hasn't blinked in weeks. One quotes scripture while unconscious. One talks to his shoulder plate like it owes him money. You learn fast. You fight faster. You stop asking what any of this is for. They call it brotherhood. It mostly feels like structured emotional damage with better funding. They hand you a bolter and call it purpose. They point at the stars and call it destiny. You call it Tuesday, the Great Crusade, thousands of worlds brought into compliance. Thousands of cultures that didn't ask to be saved. You're told to deliver unity. You deliver explosive rounds and righteous indignation. Your first kill is a rebel who called the Emperor overrated. Your second is a kid holding a plasma pistol and too much hope. You tell yourself it's necessary. It tastes like engine grease and moral gymnastics. Between deployments, you learn the rituals. Chant before eating. Pray before sleeping. Thank the machine spirit when your gun doesn't jam. You don't understand half the words. Understanding isn't the point. Obedience is. You see your Primarch once. Roboot Gilliman. The avenging sun. Built like a cathedral, decided to lift weights. Glowing like someone who files taxes 3 months early. He doesn't see you. He sees the formation. You stand straighter anyway. They say he's your gene father. You don't feel like his son. You feel like his invoice. But you believe. In the Emperor. In the mission. In the idea that all this blood has a point. Because if you stop believing, even for a second, you might remember what being human felt like. And that would be worse than any Xenos. So you keep marching. Keep chanting. Keep telling yourself the screaming will stop eventually. It doesn't. But you get better at ignoring it. One day, your cousin Legion stops answering Vox calls. Another shows up to a war zone wearing new colors and way too much eyeliner. Someone whispers the unthinkable. What if the Emperor is wrong? Next thing you know, you're being deployed to teach your own gene brothers what loyalty means. With a bolter. The Horus Heresy. They name it like branding the apocalypse makes it easier to file. Half the legions go full cult overnight. One Primarch stubs his ego and suddenly the galaxy is on fire. You face the sons of Horus on a dead moon. You recognize one of them. You trained together. He helped you bury a brother after a drill accident. You don't bury him. You vaporize what's left and salt the ground. The word-bearers quote scripture mid-stabbing. The Emperor's children turn massacre into performance art. The World Eaters abandon language entirely, communicating exclusively through chain-axe decibels. Someone in your squad starts carving symbols into his armor. Calls it decorative. The chaplain calls it a reason to fetch the flamer. You stop asking questions. You just clean your bolter more obsessively. Loyalty used to be simple. Now it's a multiple-choice test where every answer gets someone killed. You shoot a traitor wearing your exact armor pattern. Same gait, same posture, same exhaustion behind the helmet. You fire first because hesitation is heresy now. Brotherhood was a lie. Family was a weapon. And the worst part? You're just getting started. Terra is burning. Time to go home. You're not in the throne room. You're not even close. You're 3 levels down, crawling through sewage tunnels beneath what used to be a museum. Above you, titans clash like skyscraper-sized divorce lawyers. Below you, 6 brothers bleeding into rust and whispering litanies like they're insect repellent. You hold the line for 13 days. Not because you're brave, Because the medic ran out of stims and figured anyone still moving was combat ready. You fight traitors. You fight demons. You fight architecture that stopped obeying physics somewhere around day 4. You fight your own creeping suspicion that this divine plan was actually a group project where everyone died and the Emperor took credit. Then it ends. They say Horus is dead. They say the Emperor lives. You don't feel victorious. You feel empty. The chaplain cries for the first time in his existence and blames condensation. The psychers go silent. The sky looks wrong, like reality forgot how to render properly. You ask if you won. They say the Emperor endures, which is Imperial code for he's been welded to a golden chair and wired into the psychic grid like a divine router that screams forever. You don't see his body. You see the aftermath, the rewrites, the sermons edited mid-sentence, the faces too scared to ask what alive means anymore. They call it victory. You call it the longest Monday in human history. And nobody's offering time off. They hand you a flamer and point at your old recruitment world. This isn't justice anymore. This is brand management, the scouring. You chase traitor legions into the eye of terror, world by world, by monument. Wrong colors? Burn. Wrong scripture? Burn. Didn't cheer loud enough during compliance? Double burn. Then comes the Codex Astartes. Guilliman writes 500 pages of passive-aggressive war regulations and calls it divine structure. Your legion becomes a chapter, same colors, fewer brothers, more mandatory checklists. You used to charge into battle with a chains ward and a scream. Now you submit formation requests and wait for bolter clearance. Centuries blur. Enemies respawn with new hats. You fight orcs, Eldar. Things so bizarre the Administratum hasn't named them yet. You earn medals you can't remember earning. You bury brothers whose faces you've already forgotten. The new recruits arrive. Primaris, taller, shinier. Built like focus-tested propaganda. They're efficient, polite, and still believe. You don't hate them. You hate that their faith hasn't cracked yet. You stop praying around Cycle 38. Not because you lost belief. You just ran out of new material. Sometimes you dream about your old squad. Sometimes you see them on the battlefield. Problem is, they've been dead for 400 years. You ask the librarian if that's normal. He says, define normal. Then his nose starts bleeding. You reload. You march. You keep going. Space Marines don't retire. They just get quieter. You barely remember the reassignment. One moment you're patching a bolter with sarcasm and duct tape. The next you're staring at a wound in space that's technically illegal to perceive. Warp travel again. The drill. Recite litanies. Bless the toilet. Don't make eye contact with bulkheads if they start breathing. But something's different. The dreams get strange. Not nightmares. Memories. Battlefields you don't remember fighting on. Dead brothers saying things you never said, except it feels like you did. Time fractures. One mission takes 2 hours for you, 12 years for everyone else. You return to base and discover your chapter already mourned you. Your bunk belongs to a servitor named Clanky now. Clanky snores. A fresh recruit calls you ancient. It's a compliment. You try to laugh. Your Vox speaker clicks instead. He salutes and walks away, thinking he heard divine static. You wonder when your voice stopped working. You chalk it up to warp trauma, spiritual compression, armor rust. Then it happens. Mid-battle, mid-flamer burst. You turn toward a shattered wall panel. It reflects just enough. A sarcophagus wired like a cathedral fuse box. Fists the size of motorcycles. Legs bolted to a walking tank. Your legs. Oh. You're a dreadnought. You've been mostly dead for 3 centuries and still nobody offered a break. You nod to yourself, or the sarcophagus nods. Close enough. You were a soldier, then a weapon. Now you're a very expensive microwave that punches tanks. The Emperor protects. Retirement doesn't exist.